Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and as always I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today on the show we're going to be talking about virtual professionalism and showing up well on video and on mic and some of those things that you might need to keep in mind. And we do have a very special guest that we'll introduce you to in a moment. Sam, normally I would ask you about your week, but we're not going to do that this week. I just want to acknowledge it's not the subject of today's show, but it would be remiss of us not to acknowledge the TikTok situation. And I feel like you've been taking it particularly hard. So can you talk to us about that for a moment?
I mean, I've been expecting it. I honestly am not surprised at the way it's all gone down. And for anyone who doesn't know, in the U.S., all three levels of our government have passed the bill that would ban or force TikTok to sell, including the final, which is the presidential. And then TikTok earlier today, or it may have even been yesterday, I don't even remember, basically said that they will not sell. The CEO did put a video out that essentially said they're going to take this, through the court system with the First Amendment and go all the way with that as far as they can. And we'll see what happens there. Potentially what's going to happen here is they have, I think it's 9 months to sell, although I originally heard it was going to be a year, but I guess it's 9 months is what I haven't read the bill itself. So I'm going to take the people at the word that it's 9 months. But at some point when all of the back and forth litigation starts, that will basically put that 9 months on a pause. So it'll go until it's gone up to the court system and the Supreme Court rules however the hell they rule, because it's going to go there one way or the other. And then that 9 month countdown would keep going potentially unless they throw it out. So for everyone who's out there, you probably have a year to 2 years, honestly, before, this whole thing happens. So we'll see. So now's the time to start rallying your troops if TikTok is a place that you've been, and start getting them to follow you on other places. If you're a live streamer that's been doing TikTok, start multicasting if you don't already do that. And it's going to be weird. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly something we're going to have to keep watching. And again, as someone who's not American, I don't know if it's going to have implications for me, but I don't really do a lot on TikTok. I watch a lot of TikTok. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure, but it is fascinating because Sam's someone who's been online for a really long time. He's seen these services come and go, but I can't imagine you've seen one where a government has just decided, no, this is not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah, no, nothing like this. I mean, it's all much more like Live Space, for anyone who doesn't know, also just shut down. And generally what happens is they just don't get that VC funding, and then they go, you have 28 days and we're shutting services down. So this is different on so many levels because it's a much longer window, but the stakes are weirdly higher. I don't like...
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. And we might talk about that on next week's show in more detail. We are going out live to all the various places. So if you are watching live, do that thing that I am forever trying to make happen, #TeamLive, or if you're watching this later on, #TeamReplay. I do want to acknowledge the fact that it's Sam's daughter's birthday, Iris. So happy birthday to Iris. Also, happy birthday to Garren Blaney from Micro Studio, who has been on this show a couple of times now. So I just want to check in with the chat before we get started. Big hello to the man himself from Team Tired. Saeed is saying that he's watching from Germany. He's also saying he's 4 subscribers away from 100, which is amazing. And I'm always impressed by his energy and the outreach that he does, because he leaves me for dead. Anyway, hello to Raindrops and Ripples and CG, who's joining us over on Twitch as well. Thank you for your company today. But today on the show, we're going to be talking about virtual professionalism, and we do have a very special guest from Deskrig, the CEO and founder himself, Garren Parkins.
Hey guys,
welcome,
thanks for
Garren.
having me on today.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I thought you'd never ask. So I'm so excited to finally make my appearance on this very astute show.
Awesome. I am super jealous of that background, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I have carefully crafted it.
That's great.
And the green screen's ready to pull down at any moment too. So,
Nice.
yeah.
And it's funny, I mentioned Garren Blaney had a birthday during the week, and I never knew anybody named Garren until I met you two on LinkedIn. So it's we've got American Garren and we've got Canadian Garren, and you're both doing great things in video. We're going to talk about Deskrig in a moment, but I guess as a bit of a foundation, let's talk about virtual professionalism. So how do you describe that, and who is that for?
Virtual professionalism is for anyone who is working full time in a virtual setting, or really part time even. I think most professionals don't go to work in anything less than their best, right? Like if you're trying to impress and you're trying to make an impression upon people and stand out in a crowd, you show up looking dressed sharp, haircut, you come ready. And it's a very similar concept. And I think virtual professionalism is really just the extension of in-person professionalism and virtual presence. And it's just done differently. And so when most people made this transition during COVID, there was a new venue and technique and tools that people needed to learn. And that's really what it's all about, is just showing up your best on camera and making sure that your personality shines through and it lifts you up. The way you look on camera lifts you up as opposed to kind of pushes you down. And that I learned that firsthand in my own experience.
And I must admit, as someone who does work in corporate settings, I'm always a little surprised by how many people, even in senior leadership, are very happy to have a webcam pointed up their nose and just hiding in the shadows and leaning over their earbuds as a makeshift microphone. Do you find it's difficult to convince people of the benefits of actually doing this?
I used to try to convince people of the benefits of doing it. And what I've realized is the people who recognize it, they see it, and I spend my time there, because trying to convince someone that they don't look so good on camera is not a great way to start a business conversation. Sure. It has to be a self-recognition. I mean, you have to really be able to look in the mirror and say to yourself, right, have a little bit of self-reflection and say, hey, like, this is probably not the way I want to be showing up to, this large audience that's available to me online.
Absolutely. So do you have any general advice for people that want to maybe improve? I guess we'll get into the tech in the next segment, but just generally in terms of communicating via a computer, do you have any tips on that specifically?
I always point back to things people are used to kind of try to draw some parallels to the way you're showing up and the way real professionals in production show up. So when you turn on the television and you're watching your favorite news channel, whatever that looks like, what do they look like? Why do they look like that? Why is that important that they show up with the right camera angles and the right lighting and the right microphones, right? I talk a lot about cameras and microphones being a sensory capture device and being able to enrich and enhance virtual experiences with the full senses that are available to you, right? And doing the best job you can and giving people, your audio with a nice microphone, so you get those really nice deep lows like you would in person, and you're able to see that person's face and the wrinkles and the imperfections that exist, and it's not kind of blurred out by a low resolution camera and a poor webcam with small sensor and terrible lighting. I really like to show up and make people think at the end of the call, like, wow, I really feel like he was in the room with me. I'm trying to be able to give them the charisma that I feel like, you're able to provide in person. That energy, that transfer of energy is really important. And I think the hardware, right, is going to be able, the better hardware you have, the better you're going to be able to achieve those goals. But looking at simple things, right, just frame yourself up right? Don't leave too much negative space on camera, right? Don't be looking down, I mean, it's pretty simple. Get some books out, put your laptop on it, get the microphone close enough to where, it doesn't sound like you're in a faraway room. There's some very simple things you can do with the equipment you already have from a configuration standpoint that make all the difference in the world. Like when I travel, I use just a MacBook Air. Like I have a little MacBook Air for travel specifically, and I can come in looking like $1 million, just by knowing how to frame myself up on camera, knowing how to light myself with the natural lighting that's available in the crappy hotel room that I have. Like just little things like that make a big difference. And I think you don't have to buy super expensive equipment to get high quality virtual presence. However, it does enhance it.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that I used to use the Logitech C920 webcam for the longest time. And I used to think it was brilliant. And I've had to use it recently in the last couple of weeks. And when I compare that to what I'm using now, it's so painful to even look at myself through this terrible webcam. So I think sometimes people don't know how good they can look on camera until they have access to that kind of equipment.
Right. I mean, the Logitech is, it's better than a lot of people have for their entry level laptop cameras, especially on the PC side. But yeah, once you've played around with it for a while and seen what the next steps are, yeah, it's a little outdated at this point for sure.
Just want to check in with the chat briefly. So Saeed is saying camera off in meetings. Why? I mean, people wouldn't put a bag over their heads in person. So why are they doing it on camera? To be really honest with you, Saeed, when I show up on camera, I like to show up well, but I don't like to show up on camera for a really long time. There's a reason this show only goes for an hour, and that's because that's probably my limit. But again, Garren, I'm curious, like, why do you think people are so reluctant to be on camera?
It's the same thing about recording yourself and listening to your audio back, right? I mean, do you remember the Home Alone movie and in Macaulay Culkin, he had that recording device?
Uh-huh.
I remember getting one of those as a kid and thinking that like I was going to record myself singing and saying things, and it was going to sound so cool. And then I remember the first time I played it back, even just being a kid and thinking, that's what I sound like. And I think the same thing happens on video where you see yourself on the camera and you're like, ooh, that's not maybe what I want to look like. And so it's self-consciousness. And I think we all have that problem is we're self-conscious and we think people are paying more attention than they actually are.
Oh yeah. That is 100% accurate. Like a lot of everything is all about how we see ourselves and dismissing that other people are just as busy thinking about themselves, not us at all.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we're all vain to a point, right? And I think that gets in the way of recognizing that being on video helps to establish a better connection with the person. And that's the most important thing. And if you look crappy, that's okay, right? Like if you come in a bad webcam, if you don't frame yourself up, it's still better than having a camera off, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's going to create the feeling that you're not paying attention to that person, like you're walking, right? That and not looking at them speaking. Then it just feels like you're kind of like distracted. And so that's the only time I think I'll ever turn my camera off is if I know that I'm not in a place where I can stop and slow down and just pay attention to the other person.
It's one of those things that I sort of joke that I have thousands of dollars of video and audio equipment, but I have to turn my camera off sometimes in corporate meetings because I have no poker face whatsoever. So, sometimes I turn it off because I am rolling my eyes at the thing that was just said out loud. So we need to keep that in mind. Hello to Business Growth Ready, who's joined us over on YouTube, and the man we've been talking about a lot this morning. Happy birthday, Garren from Micro Studio. Great to have your company here, Garren. Garren's been on this show twice, actually. So he's the only guest we've ever had that's come back a second time. So
nice.
We're great to have the Canadian Garren and the American Garren together again. But just quickly before we move on to our next segment, Saeed's saying, do you have any thoughts on hybrid meetings? So I guess that's the crossing of some people are on in person, some people are remote. What are your feelings about that generally?
I mean, it's necessary. Yeah. Right. These are not tools that are just black and white, right? Like it's not, oh, well, it's hybrid. So we should, I think that's just part of the game. And you're going to have a group of what happens all the time where I'll have 3-4 video participants in a call, and sometimes one of them has 3 people sitting in a boardroom table, and that's totally normal, and I think that's okay. And sometimes I'm excited about that when I see they are in that type of space, because I know generally I can assume there's a large TV in that room that they're looking at me on, and I know because of how I'm showing up, they're really going to get the full picture, right? Which is going to be super high end camera, graphics from OBS, like the whole 9 yards. And it's really going to allow me to shine. So I love that hybrid setting where we've got a mixed crowd, because it typically lets the people who know how to use virtual really stand out from everybody else.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
I think I've only done a couple hybrid meetings. And I would say, because the meeting that I was on the in real life side of it, and we had a giant whiteboard. So if you're going to do a meeting like that, you really need to have someone who actually can sort of run that stream element of it for the people who are not there in that big meeting with the whiteboard, because it was okay, and I don't think those people that were calling in were super high on the food chain, but in the odd chance that they need to know more, yeah, that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what's really wild to me about this transition that's happened since COVID into the virtual setting is how many people still haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
Like, it's astounding to me that, you're thrust into this environment, and it's almost as if they are actively trying to be like, nah, not going to do that. And you're like, wait, it's not a choice anymore, actually. So you can get on board or you can get left behind. And I think we're kind of still in the infancy of this future of work transition. And a lot of those people are going to be phasing out by the time this is absolutely ubiquitous across the board, when I'm okay with that. But for now, I think it's really interesting that you have people that are pushing back. And like, nah, I'm going to keep my camera off, or no, I'm not going to learn how to leverage some of these really easy tools that are available, like StreamYard, or, I could name 1,000 of them, but it's like, take some steps to learn, and it really can make a huge difference in your career. And that's how I got here, is recognizing how to use video for my business benefit.
Absolutely. So we're going to come back and talk about Deskrig, the company specifically, in just a moment. But this is the video and live streaming show. Stay with us.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a segment from Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. This is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking to Garren Parkins all about Deskrig, virtual professionalism, and just showing up really well on camera. So, Garren, can you just explain to us what Deskrig is and does?
Yeah, I'll kind of tell my quick origin story of how the business started, because I think it will really say a lot about what Deskrig is and what we do. So in 2015, I got a job working as a virtual sales executive for a startup company based in Los Angeles. I had been in agency world. I got scalped to this company. They wanted me to come build their sales team. And I was working remote. They were in Los Angeles. I'm here in Tennessee. And immediately I realized I was a bit in over my head. I was in virtual rooms with executives from all over the world, like Heineken, Bosch, Grain Corp, which is one of the largest malts distributors in the world. So like these huge organizations, Ableton, which is a really cool company in Germany. So I was like in all these big boardrooms, and I was in my basement at the time, in my home office, which was nothing impressive. And I found myself at a credibility deficit. It really, it dawned on me one day. I saw somebody look down and they go, "Who are you?" And I was like, ooh, like that's the problem. Is like, I'm not showing up in a way that makes them say, "Who are you?" Right. And like get excited about meeting me and be like, who is this company and what do they bring to the table? What's exciting about them? We were a startup company. So we didn't carry that brand name. We didn't carry that power and weight. And so we had to do something else. So I was watching a TikTok or what's it called? A video game stream on Twitch. And I was like, that guy's over top of his video game. That looks really cool. I wonder if I could do that with my PowerPoint presentation. Well, like, of course you could. Like now, looking back in retrospect, I feel silly for even thinking like, is that possible? So I reached out to one of my buddies who I knew streamed on Twitch, who's now an employee and one of the co-founders of Deskrig. And he was like, "Dude, I'll teach you how to do that." And so hopped on the very first call I came on to, looking like full on OBS setup, branded around me, my logo going, lower thirds. I had camera boxes. I mean, it was the whole 9 yards. It was probably a little bit overkill, honestly. And that I had that experience. That person looked up and they go, "Who are you?" And I was like, that's what I was looking for. And instantly I got through the door. Right. And then the next 3 years, I found nothing but success in that. And so, 3 years, I saw nothing but success. And I was able to really turn what I was afraid was going to be a huge failure and a terrible career mistake into a huge triumph for me personally. And we won a Heineken global multinational deal with Heineken and other large companies like Bosch and Country Malt Group, like I mentioned earlier. And that was like such a moment for me where I was like, wow, I've really figured out how to sell virtually when COVID came around. And I was like, all of the salespeople and professionals who were going to be thrust into the home office environment, they don't know how to do this. And so I said, I've got to start Deskrig. And at the time, it was really more about the hardware. I had a vision, and I still do, that Deskrig could be the Ford of workstations, because I really think that currently we're in a pre-Model T era, right? You order all your parts from a catalog, Amazon, you get them to your garage, your home office, and then you assemble those parts on your own and you integrate them on your own. That shouldn't be like that. You should be able to go to a store and be like, I want that one at my house, and it should be delivered, and you should be able to press one button to turn it on and then have a handful of buttons to use it on some type of interface, right, that you can control that system with and do whatever you want to do with it and show up in a way that you're going to be respected. And so that's kind of how Deskrig started. And what we're all about now is really just using the power of video to help enhance voices, whether that's the individuals that, are just getting started in their sales career, looking for a new job, wanting to create content, or on the other end for our production customers, that's podcasts, webinars, virtual events that want high quality production, but want to increase the efficiency and decrease the cost of post-production efforts for repurposing specifically.
That's a great point you sort of make about, I think for most of us, certainly for me, I'll speak for myself. Let's put it that way. Certainly for me, I've had to test a lot of equipment and combine different things and just see what it looks like and how it actually interacts together. And there have been times where I've done a lot of research and I think it's going to work for me, and I purchase it often at great expense, and then hopefully it does work. And I've been pretty fortunate in that sense, but this is stuff that probably doesn't come naturally to most business professionals. So having somebody with your kind of expertise that can sell them a complete package, I think is really beautiful. And I just want to show a picture of one of the Deskrig workstations, because it is so elegant and beautiful. And I know the people in our audience are going to geek out about the gear and the equipment, and we can talk about that in more detail. But I've got to tell you, I've got a lot of talents, but cable management is not one of those, and my desk is a hot mess. So I look at that and I'm incredibly envious of how streamlined and beautiful it is.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like, I look at my desk and I'm like, I managed to get all the monitors off of the desk itself, but good Lord, that thing is, I can't be that clean. I don't understand.
So that happened because, don't get me wrong, that was not always that way for me. Because honestly, it's hard. Like your cords are only so long, the ones that you're going to get. And so depending upon how you configure your monitors or where they go or the microphone and all this, like you may run out of cord space. Then your computer has to move. And then what are you going to do? And so it's this constant balancing act. But one day, to the car analogy I used earlier, I had posted an old studio picture of a prototype Model 1 Deskrig, and I was so proud of it. And like above the desk, it looked awesome.
Right.
Below the desk, however, was an absolute wreck. And some car guy came out and he was like, "Hey man, like you really should do something about those cords. Like that's the difference between it being good and it being great." And it hurt so bad to hear that. But I went back to the drawing board, and once I was able to kind of, after 100, 200 attempts, because I have rebuilt this thing literally 200-300 times, I got there, and I'm proud of the result, and I appreciate the compliments, fellas.
Sure. So I just checked with the chat a little bit. So Saeed is saying like the Browns camera is still kind of mind blowing in 2024, and I guess that was another thing I picked up when you were speaking before. Like the understanding of these tech and tools, like the kids playing games on Twitch, they understand it, but it's so confusing to a lot of business professionals. And if you bring this to just a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or whatever, they will look at you like you've performed some dark magic. Like it will blow their minds. You know, you suddenly screen sharing within your camera frame. You've got calls to action and QR codes and things popping up at different points in time. It will definitely leave that impression that Garren sort of alluded to earlier. The other thing that Saeed has said is start with managing screen sharing in Zoom before talking about StreamYard. I guess I just want to mention too, Saeed just invested in a beautiful large sort of curved monitor. So, you know, that's something that's probably on his mind quite a bit. He did also mention that he saw that picture of the Deskrig set up earlier, but didn't realize it was you. So, you know, LinkedIn is a small platform after all. Okay, so I guess if we go, and we might even just go back to that image for a second, like, can you maybe sort of articulate some of the tools that we're seeing in this photo and what you think the benefits are for virtual professionals?
Yeah, so I really am a huge fan of Elgato tools. I mean, I can't say enough about what Elgato's done with these hardware tools for professionals. And I mean, they're built for streamers, but it's a one-to-one translation. So you've got, I use the Elgato Wave 3 because it comes with the virtual audio cables out of the box kind of built in. So I can mix down all of my different, you know, browser sources or my OBS or my whatever, right? Like the system sounds. I can mix all those things down. That comes, you know, I think this Wave 3 is $100 and it has that software built in versus going out and getting VB audio cable or the banana version of that or whatever they have. I forget the name of it, but super complicated to work with. And so that's one of the things I like to use is those two tools. I'm currently on a Lumix S5 camera. That's not a camera I recommend for everybody. That's a little bit far. I do recommend like the webcam for most customers to not have to always go back there and turn it on, or maybe you forget to turn it off and the next day you come in, your camera's been on for 24 hours because it's plugged up to an adapter, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to burn out this $1,000 camera that I bought? So, but then like monitors, I don't use anything fancy for monitors. I normally just try to find some $100 like 1920 by 1080, 24-inch monitors. I think in that case, on the left-hand side, I do have a gaming monitor there, but I did switch that out later for some curved Samsung monitors I got for like $99. The lights I'm using now are the newers that are integrated with Stream Deck controls because I don't love, I like everything being centralized on Stream Deck. Again, going back to that concept earlier, I like to route everything into the Stream Deck, which is another Elgato tool, so that I don't have to always be like reaching up and like adjusting things from behind and that kind of effect. I feel like, especially on the fly in a meeting, if I need to make an adjustment, I do not want to be like, hey, hold on a second, let me go change like the color balance on my light to make sure that I look, So after that, the mounting system, that's what's proprietary to Deskrig. I guess the word is invented, which is kind of weird to say, the mounting system. And so I worked with a manufacturer to design that. It's a one singular mount and it's modular. So I do have 2 monitors and a teleprompter and a microphone connected to it. But that could be 3 monitors. That could be 4 monitors connected to that plus a tripod. You really could get in many different configurations there. And then the trick to getting those lights mounted on top of those monitors, there's a company that makes a monitor shelf that I can link you later. I cannot remember the brand name for it, but it attaches to the VESA mount. And then it provides a little shelf, which you can see on that left monitor, where you can just use, a regular 1/4 thread to get your stud mounted, and then those lights just like drop right on the stud. So that's basically it. I mean, the teleprompter is Elgato as well now. So I used to use, I think we even had this conversation at one point in time. But I used to kind of like piece together the teleprompter with newer pieces, and then I'd order the monitor that does the self-flipping. But as soon as Elgato came out with their own teleprompter, that was a no-brainer because it was much less expensive, and it came with the flipping monitor out of the box. So it was like no-brainer for me. I no longer had to be, dragging my mouse across, and then it would come on from the other side and then disappear. And then if I ever drag anything on it, like flip my brain out completely. So that's basically what's on my desk rig. But you could switch out those components. Obviously, the mounting system being the one thing that would persist through all of your changes, which was the idea of Deskrig, is like you're going to evolve the hardware you get. You're going to get a new microphone. You're going to get new monitors. You're going to get new lights. What you don't want to have to continuously buy is new mounting things, because what you'll end up with, like me, is a whole Tupperware box of mounts that you no longer use. And now I just give them away to people who are like, yeah, what about this? What about that? I'm like, hey man, come look in the box, take what you need.
I mean, the mounting system is really impressive, and I think that's the thing that's kind of the realization I've had over the last couple of years, is that you definitely want the camera to be the central thing. And again, it helps if you have that teleprompter, so you're looking at the camera and you're seeing the things that you need to see. So, I mean, I love the thought that has gone into that. Obviously, you can use all kinds of different pieces of equipment, but I just love the ability to have that three-way mount. I guess if I just check in with the comments, because I know, I think Saeed had a question. So are there any issues in terms of using this kind of setup with a standing desk, for example? Oh, here we go. Live demo.
It's happening. It's happening.
I mean, that's the great thing about it being mounted to the desk, is everything sort of moves in proportion to the desk. And I've got I don't have a desk rig as such, but I do have a standing desk, and I can sort of lift this up and lift it down. And it is one of those things that, as someone who spends an obscene amount of time in front of a computer, I do need to be mindful of the ergonomic implications of the things I'm doing sometimes, because it can be very painful after a period of time. But we're going to come back and talk about some of the tech and the tools a little bit more in just a moment. So this is the video and live streaming show. We'll be back in just a second, as long as I remember which one of these magical things I'm clicking on, which I don't think I do. Let's try this one.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video. And it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm up. And I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that's a segment from my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. That, of course, was Michelle J. Raymond talking about her fear of being on camera and how she's overcome that. And she literally just spoke from Sydney, Australia, over to San Diego for Social Media Marketing World. So that's one hell of a transformation. So I love to talk about that one. But today on the show, we're talking all about virtual professionalism, showing up well on camera, and Deskrig with the CEO and founder of Deskrig, Garren Parkins. So Garren, we're going to talk about OBS because between the three of us, we love to nerd out on this stuff. But before we do, I just want to acknowledge that you've been. I think you've been playing with another tool on that front as well, which I always struggle with the name of this one, but I believe it's
Mm-hmm.
Can you briefly touch on that before we get stuck into the OBS stuff?
Yeah. So OBS is where I got started. Came out right when Deskrig started. One of my big goals was to create a new version of Slobs, Streamlabs OBS, but I wanted to create Dobbs, Deskrig OBS. I feel like OBS was a little too complicated for a lot of people, and that's exactly what did. About 2 months after we launched Deskrig, was they got funding. They're founded by the original founder of Evernote, Phil Libin, who is like pretty famous in like the tech communities in Silicon Valley. And so what they've tried to do is create a virtual presence tool that I would say is half PowerPoint, half OBS. That's what I would call it. It's half PowerPoint and half OBS. And it really is meant to be as simple as it can be, without being nothing, just a little bit more. So, I mean, you can do all kinds of things with, like you can overlay your camera over top of your slides. You can adjust your camera size with Stream Deck now. You can do all that kind of fun stuff. Bring in different people as well. You could have 2 people on the same scene, right, at the same time over top of the same slide. So there's a lot of little capabilities like that are really great for asynchronous workers. I think for anyone who isn't willing to take the time to learn OBS, is an amazing alternative. And we've partnered with them because I have found, I've pushed OBS on people long enough and realized that not everybody is in love with video like I am. Shocker, right? Like poor guys and gals, but so seriously though, I mean, it's a great tool. And we don't look at it as a competitor or anything like that. They use us for production all the time. They recognize there's a place for OBS and tools like that. And so that's what is all about.
Okay. I mean, I must check it out in more detail because it sounds really interesting, but
you should.
That's often the central tension of the work that Sam and I do, and particularly this show, is we kind of want to gently introduce people to OBS Studio, but it has such a reputation for being too hard and too scary. And like I sort of describe it as being a pocket knife in the sense that it's incredibly handy, but also a bit of a rocket ship in the sense that it can do literally anything. And I think in a lot of ways, we try to encourage people to put the blinders on and just use the couple of bits that they need.
Yeah.
Again, for business professionals, I'm a big fan of using the virtual camera. So, adjusting how you show up and then just sharing that with Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever kind of software that you're using. And I believe you guys often set up a scene for some of your customers in that way. Is that right?
Yeah, so we actually deliver a product called Deskrig VX, Video Experiences, which is a pre-built OBS theme, very kind of complex set of scenes, sources, plugins, and scripts that work in concert and ultimately are completely controlled through the Stream Deck. And I would go through those scenes right now, but they're all 1920 by 1080, so I'm going to get cut off in the camera box, and it would look great for your stream. So, but I do plan on sharing that theme with you guys so you can play around with it. I'd love to get your feedback on it and see what you guys thought. But yeah, that's kind of was our approach to getting OBS in people's hands, was like, hey, what if they never had to touch OBS? What if all they had to touch was Stream Deck? And we were able to give them all of those tools that are really deep in there, and bring it to a tactile device. And so that's how we deliver OBS, and it's called Deskrig VX. Nice. We also use that same technique in building themes, scene collections, for Deskrig PX, which is our production experiences. So we'll take that same concept on the micro level and we'll duplicate it times 20 for however many guests we think are going to be on a potential production. And then we operate OBS on their behalf, and then we will stream, whether that's virtual camera or, regular stream, to all their destinations. So it's like a complete hands-off experience, but they're still getting the power of OBS on their production.
And you actually sent me a screenshot earlier today where I guess you were doing some of that production work.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, one of my employees went to a wedding today, and so I had to step in and go and do the work. And I forgot how much fun it is to produce live for somebody, and the energy that you get, and right before you hit that go live button, and when it's for you and you're doing it, you're like, if it messes up, whatever, I'll fix it. But when you're doing it for somebody else who's paying you, it's like the big game, and it's like you've prepared. But Mike Tyson said it best. It's like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? And as soon as something goes wrong, the tensions rise, and there's all this adrenaline pumping to make sure that you're able to like solve that problem on the fly. And so, yeah, we love that. And I was in the middle of that production when that was going on.
Nice. Yeah, that's a big part of streaming, is knowing that things are going to go wrong and that you're going to be able to fix it.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I guess getting back to those scene collections that you're building out for your customers, like what kind of, because I mean, to me, the virtual camera in particular is a great opportunity to bring in branding elements and logos and colors and potentially even sort of screen shares and animations and things. What kind of things are you building out for your customers in that way?
Yeah, so I love, first off, I love leveraging masks. Like at a base level, just go to the very bottom, like image masks to, create unique shapes you don't normally see in video production, especially live video production. Most people are going to show up with complete squared off edges. They might be boxed down to a square by the software itself, but they didn't do that. So I like to make rounded edges, or sometimes do something interesting with shapes, whatever shape you can come up with that would be relevant to that specific brand. I also then like to layer. This is getting a little deep. So I like to layer different scenes, like I nest scenes together. And so I'll create like the effect of a drop shadow. Yeah. That then I will put color layers underneath that mask, and I can swap through those color layers so that the mask or the shadow can change colors. And then same thing with the lower thirds, right? I like to use masks to create lower third styles, and then nest those back into a primary camera box, and then make it easy for those to like slide. Oh, I forgot I'm not in the right scene. Slide in and out very easily by pressing the Stream Deck button, right? So those are really simple things I like to do. Stepping up from there, it's like QR codes for CTAs, or pulling up a PowerPoint presentation, whether that's through the image, like the slideshow style in OBS, or just a display capture. Or maybe you've got a website built in that you want to go through, right? Having all those things kind of preset, pre-built in, that's about where I stop though. Because going too far past that, I think things get a little complicated. So that's already enough for most people, and more than what most people expect on a video call. But those are the types of things we put into Deskrig VX scene collections.
And I think like a really long time ago, we kind of had a discussion about, how many people need to know how to use OBS and how many people need to learn how to work with OBS. Like, and the great thing, I guess, about is the sync collections that you're providing them with. If they've got the camera and microphone on, they can just use it as is. And I think that's really powerful. And I really appreciate that. Saeed is just saying, so basically all I would have to do is add my devices, camera, microphone, and I'm ready to go.
So one of my big qualms with OBS right now, that's a great question. The answer is yes. You would also have to change the scene for your email and your title for the lower thirds, right? I do not love how sources are stored in OBS. I think there should be similarly to a Premiere and After Effects, like you have like a sources panel where you can just see all the sources you have. Now, obviously, when you click plus, add source, and you go to that specific source top, it'll say add existing or create new, right? Sure. Right. But wouldn't it be nice to just be able to like drag that out of a panel in and drop it in, right? So what we do is going back to that nesting strategy. I create a scene for almost every single source. And then all of those nested scenes, because you can add a scene as a source.
Yep.
I create a settings scene. And then I create groups. So profile, masks, background photos, colors, like everything. And then I will put all of those there. So you could even, if you wanted to go rebuild something yourself, you could just go in there and copy and paste that out and be able to quickly grab and copy and paste those, right? That's one way of doing that. And then also similarly to what he's saying, you can go to that settings scene and change all of your settings. All of the sources are already there kind of waiting on you to be like, oh, I've just got to go to the profile group. There's one text box, there's the next text box, there's the next text box, there's one color, there's two colors, there's three colors. And you just change those details. And then, yes, all of your other details would just fall right into place.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so we're going to come back and talk about some of the options we have in terms of extending the functionality of OBS in just a moment. And I really need to organize these so I know which one I'm clicking on. But I believe it is this one here.
If you've been watching us for a while or this is your first time and you're thinking, Sam, John, this is great stuff, but I'm wearing a lot of hats already and I don't need to add this to my list of things that I'm doing, but I really want to live stream, I've got you covered. I've been a freelance technical director and stream operator for 20 years, and I can help you either with one-on-one counseling, setups of shows, or even run your whole show for you. Get in touch with me, samproof@gmail.com, or find out more at samproof.tv.
And if you do need assistance with those production skills, it sounds like both Garren and Sam could potentially help with that kind of thing. So reach out to one of them.
First buy the Deskrig and then hire me.
Yes. All right, cool. So I guess the great thing about OBS, and if you are using OBS, maybe you're using other things, that's fine. We're quite agnostic on this show. But if you are using OBS, the great thing about OBS is that O in OBS stands for open, and it is open source software. The wonderful thing about this is there's a whole community of developers building things to extend its functionality with scripts and plugins. And I know we've nerded, like the three of us probably have nerded out about this in the past, but I'm really curious, Garren, are there any particular plugins or scripts that you're really loving at the moment?
So anything by Exaldro is good. I mean, that he is obviously like the premier plugin creator, in my opinion. I guess that is subjective, but I think it's objective. If you ask me, I think he is like by far the best. But like move transition, like you can't live without move transition, right? But like source recorder is a nice one that he does. I really like that one. I really like source switcher, which is another one. So you can like create a slideshow of sources that's controllable, whether through hotkey or timing or whatever else. That's another really nice one. So you could do the nested scenes as sources in the scene switcher and kind of get some really interesting things going on there. Also source toggler is a script. It's not necessarily a plugin, but the same thread, right? Just maybe a little different implementation, but that's going to make it to where like inside of a group or inside of a scene, only one source can be on. So if you have a Stream Deck set up to toggle sources on and off visibility, then you no longer have to toggle the old one off or do any clever stuff with layering on like having the one on top. You can just press on or off, whichever one you want to be on turns on, the other one automatically turns off. You pair that then with the show and hide transitions for the scene visibility, source visibility. You've got some really cool things that you can start to stack together to make really interesting things happen. Browser refresh is another script that I really like. It refreshes like every single browser source inside of your production. And that was important to us because for a while we were hosting all of our creative inside of the cloud. And then we were, all of our source files were actually inside of little HTML files. And then it would just be a single image inside of that HTML file. And then we could, if we updated that file, we could remotely update a customer's OBS.
Nice.
Which was cool. It got a little complicated to manage over time, I realized, but it was a cool concept. But being able to refresh like all those browsers all at once were great. Downstream keyer is another one that I've wanted to play with and haven't had the time to spend. Source copy. I mean, I can look at his list right now. I'm like, man, there's so many of these that I've used that are so good.
It's funny, you sort of spoke about masking earlier, and I don't use a lot of masking, certainly not at this computer because I've got the green screen. But it's such a beautiful thing in the sense that you don't need to start with an image. You can literally just choose an option from the panel. And the thing that Sam and I realized was the first thing that we did was we went in and we took the rectangle and we rounded two of the corners, the opposing corners of the rectangle for that shape, which is such a 90s internet throwback, but it's funny how some of those things never die. But I guess one of the scripts that you introduced me to, which I do still use quite a lot, is actually the QR code, the script for that. So you can certainly create QR codes however you like and bring them in as image sources, but the ability to just type some things in and change a few colors if you need to, that's kind of amazing that you can do that. But I guess in some ways, and again, we need to think about who our audience is, because if they are those people that just need the basics, the more plugins and scripts you add, potentially the more complexity you're working with. So just keep that in mind too. But I mean, there are so many beautiful plugins out there, and most of them are free. And I guess the one, I don't even stream vertically, but my favorite thing in the world is actually the Atom vertical plugin, because I always record a vertical version of whatever I'm doing, so I can repurpose that for YouTube Shorts and Reels and TikTok to the extent that it's available in the near future. So that's another great one as well.
I think that's probably, I left that off my list, not even thinking, but that's because I don't even think of it as a plugin. It's like, that's just part of OBS now. Like that's,
I'm almost 100% always using that A10 plugin, and usually not for streaming. I'm also usually just using it to record.
Yeah. Oh, and there's nothing. There is, I think that is the most powerful thing that's been added to OBS in the past 5 years, in my opinion. To be able to simultaneously record in both formats at the same time, like how much better does it get?
And to think that, OBS Studio is literally free, the Atom Vertical plugin is literally free. This is the ability to stream horizontally and vertically at the same time. A lot of the paid tools are catching up, but OBS was actually one of the first real options to give you that capability. So I can't overstate how grateful we are to all the developers that are out there making cool stuff that just, often it's to scratch their own itch and help them create the things they want to do, but then they're really generous in sharing that and sharing that for free as well. So
one of my big goals is to be one of the primary sponsors of OBS. Like I really want to give back to that organization and be able to help the people who make that happen, live better, because it is donation, right? And I think OBS has changed my life, quite literally changed my life. It changed the trajectory, and it gave me Deskrig, which has given me purpose. And so in a way, OBS gave me purpose, which sounds really kind of funny and cheeky, but it's true. And so I'm really great. I am eternally grateful, like you, to those developers who spend their time and give back, and love that open source community vibe. I mean, and you're right, there are some commercial options that are catching up, but I think I truly believe that OBS will always stay one step ahead, and there will be complexity to that, and that's okay for me because I'm cool to learn that.
Yeah, I mean, you can do anything you want with OBS free.
Yes,
the barrier of entry as far as financially is absolutely zero.
Yes. Yeah. What more could you ask for? Look, what else in life is actually free?
Right.
So.
Saeed says, follow in Zoom. I believe it's actually Zoom in and follow, if I remember right, but he might have another one. Is also awesome to follow the mouse and Zoom in. Great for tutorials and stuff. That's really, really awesome.
Thanks for the tip.
I haven't used that one, but I do need that.
I have a feeling Said may have shared some content about that on LinkedIn during the week, so maybe check him out on LinkedIn. But yes, and again, this is a family show, but free is my favorite F word according to Said, so we definitely appreciate that as well. All right, well, I mean, Garren, it's been so great to have you here today, and we're always happy to nerd out with a fellow OBS enthusiast, and I do really appreciate the things that you've been producing and sort of showing people what is actually possible, because I think in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people in corporate settings have just resigned themselves to the painful Zoom meeting as the thing that they're going to be subjected to. And I love anybody that can sort of show that it can be much, much more than that and be quite transformative. So where can people go to find out more about you and Deskrig and all of those good things?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place to find me. So linkedin.com/Garren Parkins, I think, or /IN/Garren Parkins. You can find me there. And then also at deskrig.com, you can reach out through there as well.
Okay, awesome. So you can check that out, deskrig.com. Yes, so thank you so much. Just hang on the line. We'll have a quick chat after the show ends. So Sam, I realize you've got to run very quickly and celebrate that very important birthday. How old is she turning?
She's turning 9.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Last single digit year.
So if people want to catch up with you, Sam, watch your content, follow you on social media, all of the things, where should they go?
Yeah, head over to samproof.tv and you can find all my social links at the top left there. I am Sam Proof on just about anything you could want except TikTok, but that's going away in 2 years, so don't worry about it. And if you didn't see enough cats this week, head over to cuteavalanche.com. There it is, and the QR code, and you can find our 24/7 kitten cam. We'll talk to Garren about adding some kind of cat bed to the Deskrig in the future.
Remind me, I'm going to say something about that in a second, but if you do want to find out more about me or follow me on social media, I'm mostly on YouTube and LinkedIn, but you can head over to johnlacey.com. The podcast and a bunch of articles and OBS stuff is available over there. One thing, Sam was sort of joking about adding I don't know if he was joking, but he mentioning adding a cat bed to the Deskrig, but we literally had a show once where Sam disappeared because one of the kittens found the internet connection and pulled it out. So that's always a potential danger when you're working with animals or children. So definitely keep that one in mind. We'll be back at roughly the same time next week. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to talk about next week, although I have a feeling we probably would be worthwhile to sort of reflect on the TikTok stuff and talk about content longevity more generally, because I think social media is always that rented land, and I think it's always important that we have some sort of backup plan. So keep that in mind. Please like and subscribe to wherever you're watching this. It would be great to have your company, and have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.